Imagine a cold night in the red heart of Australia. A film crew sets up their gear near Uluru as the last of the light fades. Suddenly, above the horizon, a line of tiny blue-white lights appears and hovers, shimmering like embers rising from a campfire. An elder standing nearby whispers that those are not just stars, they're sisters. She tells the crew that long ago, these 7 sisters gave humans the gift of life itself, and that their story spans continents and ages. By the end of this journey, you'll understand why this cluster of stars has ignited myths from Australia to Greece and beyond. Like what you see? Don't forget to subscribe, hit like, share with your mates, and drop a comment about your own stargazing memories. Auroras and meteor showers might get the headlines today, but for tens of thousands of years, the Pleiades have captured our imagination. This small group of stars, known as the 7 Sisters, sits in the constellation Taurus and rises low over the horizon at dusk. To observers in central Australia, it looks as if the cluster lifts off from the Earth itself, traveling close to the land and then gliding slowly across the night. That visual trick has given these stars an outsized place in stories and calendars all over the world. Old star charts from Babylonia and ancient Egypt list them prominently. Greek poets wrote of their beauty, and indigenous Australians wove them into songlines that stretch from the central desert to the west coast. The cluster is a young, open group, only about 100 million years old. Astronomers now know that its stars were born together from the same cloud and are traveling through space as a family, bound by gravity. But for our ancestors, they were more than physics. They were ancestors. This video will explore the science of the Pleiades, the Dreamtime stories of the Napalgari sisters and the Karat-Gurk guardians of fire, Greek myths of goddesses and hunters, American legends of bears and onion-loving wives, and the way farmers and sailors used these stars as a seasonal clock. Along the way, you'll hear real experiences from storytellers, astronomers, and educators who keep the tales alive. By weaving science with myth, we'll see how the 7 sisters brought life in more ways than one. The Pleiades cluster is one of the nearest open clusters to Earth. It sits roughly 135 parsecs away, or about 440 light-years, and contains hundreds of stars, though only 6 or 7 are bright enough to see without optics. Imagine the curiosity this sight sparked in ancient times. In 1609, an Italian astronomer named Galileo pointed his primitive telescope at the sisters and was astonished to find that the 7 were actually dozens. He sketched 36 stars scattered through a delicate mist. A modern astrophotographer from Melbourne recently shared a similar sense of awe when he captured a long exposure image of the cluster through a backyard telescope. He counted scores of faint points and noted how the blue nebulosity glows like cosmic smoke. At its core, the science is straightforward. These stars formed from the same cloud and are moving together across space. Their proper motions match almost perfectly, indicating a family bound by gravity. Over time, the cluster will disperse, but for now it is a beautiful coincidence. Scientists also note that the stars are young and hot, burning bright blue. Dust in the cluster reflects their light, giving the Pleiades its signature haze. The cluster's brightness and small size make it a perfect object for calibrating distances in the universe, helping build the cosmic distance ladder. The Pleiades were even used to resolve a scientific controversy. The Hipparcos satellite measured their distance shorter than expected, prompting debates that lasted years until other techniques settled on the current range. While the physics is fascinating, the key takeaway here is that this isn't just a random group, it's a stellar family. And as with any family, people have told stories to explain its origins. One question that has puzzled many cultures is simple. Why does everyone call them 7 sisters when most people can only see 6? Some scientists suggest that the star Pleione may have been brighter in the past. That puzzle gave storytellers license to imagine hidden sisters, punishments and tragedies, leading us into the realm of myth. In Aboriginal Australia, the Seven Sisters story is one of the most widespread songlines. It spans more than half the continent and is told in dozens of languages. A linguist from Alice Springs once described hearing the same core tale from elders thousands of kilometers apart, each with local details. In the Walpiri version, the sisters are Napaljarri women pursued by a Jampi Jinpa man named Wardilika. Under traditional law, he is forbidden to marry them. He's from the wrong skin group, but he is obsessed. Each night he chases them across the land, and each night they leap up from a hill and launch themselves into the sky to escape. He follows as a star in Orion's belt, always close but never able to catch them. A Walpiri elder once told a documentary crew that the chase teaches young men about respecting boundaries. Her grandfather used to say that if you ignore the law, the stars themselves will remind you. In another telling, the man is accompanied by his dog, represented by Sirius. The story is not just a romance, it encodes geography. The songline lists waterholes, hills and ceremonial sites across the desert. At a place called Yanjilipiri, meaning star, young boys from different groups meet for initiation ceremonies. Women dance while men perform kodiji, reinforcing law and identity. The sisters are also linked to the morning star Jukura Jukura, who helps them escape. Anthropologists note that by embedding law, geography and astronomy into a single narrative, the story ensures survival. It's told in third person because the storyteller is a conduit, not the protagonist. A contemporary artist from the Pintupi community paints the Seven Sisters story with swirling lines representing the chase. She explained in an interview that she feels like she's keeping the knowledge alive for future generations. As we move to the next story, keep in mind the themes of pursuit, forbidden love, and respect for law. They reappear in surprising places. Another Indigenous Australian story about the Seven Sisters paints them as the original guardians of fire. In this tale, the sisters are spirits called Carrot Gurk. They roam the earth carrying digging sticks with glowing coals on top, keeping the secret of fire to themselves. A researcher recounting this myth in a 2019 book noted that many groups portray the coals as the first embers, essential for cooking and warmth. Others covet the fire, but the sisters refuse to share. Then a clever crow decides he's had enough. He tricks the sisters, steals the embers, and escapes. In the chaos, the coals fall and ignite a blaze that spreads across the landscape, charring the crow's feathers black and bringing fire to humans. The now freed flames cannot be returned, so the Carrot Gurk are swept into the sky with their glowing sticks still burning. Those glowing ends are the Pleiades. This story is striking because it links the stars to one of humanity's most important technologies. A bushfire ecologist from Western Australia once told a class that she uses this tale to illustrate the ecological role of fire. It's not just a disaster, but a tool. The myth also explains why crows are black and why they're often depicted as tricksters. Psychologists who study folklore suggest that the narrative transmits lessons about resource sharing and cunning. By portraying fire as both stolen and a gift, the story acknowledges that knowledge can be gained in unexpected ways. The theme of women guarding vital knowledge appears elsewhere, hinting at matriarchal power in early societies. When this story was first told around a campfire, listeners may have glanced up at the sisters and thought about the secrets they still hold. As we leave Australia, notice how similar motifs reappear across oceans. Across the globe, people looked up at the same stars and saw 7 women. In ancient Greece, the Pleiades were the daughters of the Titan Atlas and the sea nymph Pleione. They consorted with gods and produced famous offspring, so Zeus placed them in the heavens. Another Greek tale tells of Artemis's hunting companions being spotted by Orion. To protect them, Zeus turned the sisters into stars, while Orion, still visible today, chases them eternally. The Greek myths explain why one of the stars, Merope or Pleione, is faint. She fell in love with a mortal and her light dimmed in shame. On the other side of the world, indigenous groups in North America also speak of 7 sisters. A Lakota legend says 7 girls climbed Devil's Tower to escape giant bears. The Great Spirit raised the rock to the sky, and the bear's claws left deep grooves on its sides. The girls became the Pleiades. A Siri story from Mexico portrays the sisters as 7 pregnant women. Other stories feature onion-loving wives or a sister who hides her face because she married a mortal. These tales share themes of pursuit, chastity, jealousy, and transformation. Folklorist Stith Thompson noted that the constellation is nearly always imagined as 7 sisters, and that myths often explain why we see 6 and not 7. Modern astronomers propose that one star may have faded or merged in the past, but the myths provide more poetic answers. A Chicago museum curator, reflecting on these stories, remarked that they likely served as moral lessons, warning young women about predatory men or urging them to follow societal rules. The consistent motif of a male hunter or animal chasing the sisters suggests a shared psychological pattern. By comparing these legends, we see how humans across continents independently crafted narratives to make sense of the same celestial pattern. They differ in detail, but resonate in emotion, fear, desire, protection. Next, we'll see how these stories connect to daily life, agriculture, and survival. Beyond myth, the Pleiades served as a practical clock. Their heliacal rising, when they first appear just before dawn, signaled a change in season in many cultures. Farmers in ancient Greece knew that when the sisters rose in the spring, it was time to prepare fields for sowing. Their setting marked the start of sailing season. In Japan, the cluster is called Subaru and appears in the country's earliest chronicles. Farmers associated its appearance with planting rice. Several indigenous groups in the Americas timed corn planting to the disappearance of the Pleiades. In the Andes, modern farmers still look at the brightness of the cluster in June to predict rainy seasons and thus plan potato crops. A bright cluster means abundant rain, while a dim one warns of drought. An anthropologist from Queensland described how the Torres Strait Islanders used the Pleiades and Orion as a calendar. When the sisters sit just above the horizon at dusk, turtles are fat and ready to hunt. When they disappear, the winds change. This cosmic clock underscores the phrase, bringing life. The 7 sisters literally guide planting, harvesting, and migration. In a modern twist, a data scientist working for an agtech startup once joked that his rainfall prediction algorithm is just like what grandmothers did with the Pleiades, only with more code. By drawing parallels between ancient skywatching and current technology, we see continuity in human behavior. The stars also regulate social life. Some Aboriginal groups start initiation ceremonies when the Pleiades climb to a certain height. These ceremonies mark the transition from childhood to adulthood, another form of bringing life. As we move into the final topic, think about how the Pleiades continue to influence our lives even in an age of satellites. Even in the 21st century, the 7 sisters remain part of our cultural landscape. In Japan, the cluster is known as Subaru. The car company of the same name adopted a 6-star logo to symbolize the unification of 5 companies into one. When asked about the emblem, a Subaru marketing director once smiled and said it reminds him to look up and remember his family's farm. The National Astronomical Observatory of Japan named its flagship telescope on Mauna Kea the Subaru telescope, acknowledging the cluster's importance. In Tolkien's Legendarium, the Pleiades appear as Remirath, the netted stars, chased by Menelvagor, mirroring the Greek myth. Artists, from Aboriginal painters to modern digital illustrators, continually reinterpret the Seven Sisters. A Sydney artist created a series of mixed media works depicting the sisters as contemporary women, each representing different elements like water, fire, and earth. She explained in a radio interview that the project was inspired by the Carrot Gurk story and her love of cars. She drives a Subarus, of course. In science fiction and fringe theories, the Pleiades are sometimes cast as the home of extraterrestrial star ancestors who seeded life on Earth. While there's no evidence for such claims, their popularity shows how the cluster still fuels imagination. Astronauts aboard the International Space Station have photographed the Pleiades rising above Earth's limb, noting how the blue nebulosity stands out against space. One of them tweeted that the cluster reminded him of campfires, connecting him to his indigenous heritage. These modern echoes highlight the enduring power of the Seven Sisters. From corporate logos to telescopes, from art to pseudoscience, they remain a bridge between heaven and earth. Now let's tie these threads together and see what they tell us about ourselves. Looking back across thousands of years, the Seven Sisters have always meant more than 7 points of light. To astronomers, they are a nearby open cluster that helps us map the universe. To Aboriginal communities, they are Napaljarri sisters pursued by a law-breaking man and Carrot Gurk guardians of fire whose coals lit our world. To Greeks, they're hunted by Orion. To Lakota, they're girls saved from bears. These stories may seem different on the surface, but their themes, pursuit, protection, knowledge, and life, are universal. Scholar Stith Thompson noted that the Pleiades are almost always imagined as sisters, and their myths explain why we see 6 and not 7. Modern science offers answers about distance and stellar evolution, but myths offer meaning. They encode laws, teach morality, mark seasons, and remind us that our ancestors were superb observers of nature. When we gaze at the Pleiades today, we connect with those who came before, farmers timing their crops, sailors navigating open seas, elders teaching children around a fire. The cluster still inspires art, science, and even logos, proving that stories endure. So next time you see those tiny lights shimmering above the horizon, remember the women who gave us fire, the sisters who outran a suitor, the girls who climbed a rock to escape bears, and the farmers who looked to the sky for rain. In their own way, the Seven Sisters still bring life, guiding us not only through the seasons, but through our shared human story. If this journey through stars and stories sparked something in you, show some love. Hit that like button. Subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss our next deep dive. Share this video with friends who love mythology, astronomy, or a good yarn, and let's keep the conversation going in the comments. Tell us which version of the Seven Sisters resonated with you, or if you've ever used the night sky as your own calendar. Your support helps this channel grow and keeps these ancient stories alive. Thanks for watching.